Welcome back, everybody. This is Science Fiction and Fantasy Read Along. I am Gab.
And I am Blab.
And this is the second episode of Leviathan's Wake. No, Leviathan Wakes. I've gotten that wrong since I've read the book. I've gotten the title wrong the entire time. I always call it Leviathan's Wake, as though it were a ship cutting through water, you know?
Right.
But it's Leviathan Wakes. Which
I just have the Expanse stuck in my head, so I'm always like, that's the
we're
first
all confused, right? Everybody's confused.
Totally.
It's fine. But we are back for episode 2, during which we will discuss chapters 7 through 12. I think is accurate.
Yeah.
And I don't know, Jill. Excuse me, Blab. We didn't introduce ourselves last time, and I know that was an oversight, but even during editing, I was like, whatever, it doesn't matter.
It was unfortunate.
A little bit, a little bit, but at the same time, I just can't bring myself to give a shit.
People need to know who we are.
It's true. And so we give them our fake names.
I did listen to the podcast. I don't remember. We must have called each other by our names at least once or twice.
We did during the actual podcast. We did refer to each other by name.
So if people are listening closely,
they might have been able to figure it out. I think that guy's name is Jill. I'm pretty sure that guy's name is Jill. But yeah, we're here to talk about Leviathan Wakes chapters 7 through 12. And, well, I don't know. You just said you finished the book. You finally finished the book.
I did. I finished the whole book.
Yeah.
And as I've said before, I have seen the TV show.
Yeah. Well, based on how we felt about the first 6 chapters last time we did this, and now you've read the entire book.
Mm-hmm.
But now we're going to be talking about the second portion of this book. Like, have your feelings about the book changed now that you've read it all the way through?
I'm not sure what my feelings were in the last podcast. I think I said I was enjoying it.
Yeah, it's a fun read.
I enjoyed the book. I don't think it's necessarily, I don't see myself going back and rereading it.
Yeah, I think that's probably an accurate assessment for me as well. I don't think it's worth rereading.
I think by the time you get to the end, there isn't anything that makes you want to go back and kind of analyze or go, oh, okay, now I get that, or that's interesting. That's just not what this book is really. It's kind of all plot.
I'm wondering if reading the subsequent novels, I would still feel the same way. I'm wondering if, like, after the third or fourth book, I would be looking for clues in the first book or the second book.
Yeah, I'm not sure because I
don't feel like it.
I looked at the synopsis of the second book just to see what that book contained, especially, in correlation with the show and what I've seen, because in the first season, there are definitely characters from the second book. Like, I feel like they blended
hope so.
Yeah, I feel like they blended some of the second book into the first part of the show because we get the Earth perspective, we get the UN perspective. The Mars perspective doesn't really come into like the second and third seasons. What am I? Oh.
I don't know.
I'm lost in thought at the moment.
Yeah, no, it was
honestly
trail of breadcrumbs that led to a chasm.
Yeah, I'm not sure the point I was leading to with what I was saying there. I guess I was just throwing out random thoughts.
Well, I plan on reading book 2.
I think I'm going to as well.
If it's up my alley, because the first book was a lot of fun to read.
Yeah, and
it's not holding up for a deep reading.
I definitely have some criticisms.
Let's save those for inside the chapter, if you don't mind.
Yeah, for sure.
Instead of continue, well, let's just jump in. Yeah.
Let's go to chapter 7 and see where it takes us.
Right.
Which I assume it will take us to chapter 8 and then chapter 9.
Yeah. My goodness. Woo. Chapter 7 is Holden's chapter.
Have you noticed that some of these or a lot of these chapters end with kind of like a Law and Order stinger at the end?
I wouldn't make that connection because I didn't watch a lot of Law and Order.
Well, just like, let's say like a one-liner that's kind of like
I have noticed that they're all kind of like cliffhangers.
Yeah, well, kind of, yeah.
You know what? I don't want this in front of me. Get this out of my way. Wow, I'm having a good deja vu right now.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm not. Quick aside, you'll probably want to cut this out, but
I'm gonna cut out everything you say, Jill.
okay.
I'm sorry,
Well,
Blab.
going back to the whole of the book, I think this book suffers from the point of view, like chapter thing.
Why?
Every character that isn't Miller or Holden we're seeing them through one of their two eyes or both of their eyes.
Yeah, limited
And
perspective. Gotcha.
that's it. Yeah, it just doesn't make me connect with the other characters as much by only getting like the perspective of Holden.
I have some pretty serious criticisms of.
Like, I don't really like Holden.
Yeah, no, I haven't seen a single thing yet to make me like the guy.
And by the end of the book, I don't really like him either. I don't dislike him. Like, I don't think he's a bad guy or anything like that. I don't find him very interesting.
Yeah.
I think like we get all this Ade stuff from him. I'm jumping ahead. We'll get to those in future podcasts. I don't
think this is a weakness of Holden's. I think it may be.
No, it's a weakness of the writing.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't like getting who Naomi is from Holden's perspective. I think it's a super skewed perspective. And I will say this, the show does her way better. She's more of her own person in the show.
Okay.
She even has more opinions than she does in the book, which are more like, ugh. And I'm jumping ahead again. Later on, it's like Miller will tell Holden, like, what would Naomi do? Like, listen to Naomi. It's like, what are you talking about? You don't even know her. Like, anyway.
Well, and he's got his own problems because he's hung up on a dead girl.
Sure. And then also we get Candace stuff thrown in. There's a lot of stuff. I'm going to go there, but there is a lot of, they are both being driven by like women. It's just weird.
Almost like women are the fuel.
Yeah, like the women are only there to drive the story. I don't want to use the term frigine. Oh, I just did. But I mean, the book literally starts off with Julie Mao in a closet.
Whoa, watch the language.
Oh my God, I forgot.
Yeah, and you mean the literal closet.
And this is fueling everything that Miller's about in this book. It's interesting. It's very interesting. And the only perspective we get of Julie Mao is from Miller. And I don't even dislike Miller or anything like that, but we're only getting his perspective on who she is and who he imagines she is.
Yes, sort of. I mean, we get a tiny bit of character development for Julie from the jiu-jitsu trainer.
Right. Okay. Yeah. You know what? Let's go back to Holden, chapter 7.
Chapter 7.
I'm
Holden.
taking us in all these directions.
Yeah. No, you're all over the board, but it's fine. It's fine. I don't think that there's any reason to really be too rigid with this one because we're gonna have a lot of criticisms.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right. So
chapter 7.
To me, this chapter was all about waiting for instructions. It's the people on the night. It's Holden and his crew with Naomi and Alex, and
they're deciding where they want to go, what they want to do.
Yeah, right? But there's no deciding. It starts off when they're just waiting to hear back from K&P or whoever it is the company they work for.
And they do get a message back, and it's from the lawyer team, which they already. Holden's like, well, that's not good.
No,
that's we're already screwed there.
Yeah. Well, and he gets it straight away from this guy too. Like, Mister, you shouldn't have said what you said. Yeah.
He shouldn't have. That was really.
It was a heat of the moment kind of thing. Give the guy a little bit of a break.
I do give him a break, but he definitely was not thinking.
Who's to say he ever has?
But, as we move forward in the book, I don't think he really learns that lesson.
I don't think he has a history of thinking for himself. Look where he is. He's probably achieved middle age, and he's at the bottom of the rung as far as people who work in space.
Well, he's not at the bottom. Well, okay.
No, it is.
Company-wide, yes.
This job is considered bottom tier.
But within the job, he was the second in command.
Okay, so he's on the top of the pile of...
Right. Well, yeah, exactly. I think it's good to clarify. There's some sort of, I don't want to say drive, but You have to have something in you. Maybe it's his military background that got him to that position.
I don't know. He obviously doesn't do well when it's important. Like when stuff is on the line, he doesn't do too well. You know, he makes bad decisions. He's made a series of bad decisions already.
Well, what's the series of bad decisions? Okay, making the broadcast was a bad decision.
Well, he obviously got into the position where he is now.
Well, but he had to go to the distress signal thing, and
no, I mean he's already proven himself to be bottom tier, not top tier, or he wouldn't have this job, right? He got kicked out of the military. That was in this chapter. Not this chapter.
I wonder, why do you think he got kicked out of the military? Do you think it was for doing something?
It says we read this part in chapter 12.
Shoot, did we?
Yeah, it's in chapter 12 where he's being interrogated by the Martian guy.
Remind me what he did?
He took a swing at a commanding officer and he missed.
Yeah, of course. Of course it was something like that.
And he smashed his hand against the bulkhead and he's like, I hurt the guy that I really wanted to hurt. And it's like, you are written like a cliche.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, they've gotten their response back from their employer, and it's like it's an admonishment at the very, very least, and then they're told to follow, go meet up with the Donager and get tortured or whatever they're told.
Right, just follow instruction from there, I guess.
Yeah, there's not much else to say. I mean, we get a trickle of information.
P&K's wiping their hands of them. I mean, what are they going to do?
They're covering their ass is what they're doing.
Why would they protect them, really? What's the point?
I mean, they already lost the ice hauler. What's the rest of the crew?
Right.
Who cares?
It's not in their best interest at all.
No.
They need to try to get away from the situation as quickly as possible.
Right. So they discuss running. And
right. I think they're right smack dab in the middle of...
Yeah, they're right between...
the Belt and the Mars ship.
No, it's Jupiter. The Jupiter system, they're halfway between Jupiter system and the Belt. And they do not have the fuel to go anywhere else.
Right.
And they're going to get picked up one way or another. They're not going far. So even if they tried to run for it, they probably wouldn't get very far. And Alex, who was in the Martian Navy, tells them that the Donager is a world-class ship. It's what's the actual class of the ship? It's the
flagship for the MCRN's Jupiter fleet, battleship, 250,000 tons of bad news. Okay, so this thing is gigantic.
Yeah, so they're not going to be able to run away from it. So, and that's information coming from Alex, and
right, and he knows he's in the Navy, the Martian Navy.
Isn't that convenient?
Of course, we have.
It doesn't
an Earth perspective, a Belt perspective, a Mars perspective on board. Yes.
Yes. It didn't start to sink into me until a subsequent chapter or two, but it's very convenient how it's set up, who the characters are and what kind of information they have and can reveal.
Yeah.
And this is the guy that's telling us all the stuff about the Martian Navy that they have no business knowing.
Right.
Right.
Well, maybe Holden would know a little bit.
Think about Holden figuring out the battery. Holden wouldn't have figured out that the battery had a printed stamp on it that said where it was made.
No. I don't disagree necessarily, but let's say Alex wasn't there, and I'm just story purpose wise, maybe Holden, being in the Earth Navy, would have known something about the Martian Navy. Maybe that's all.
Doubtful. So doubtful. He knew enough to make the comparison to say that they made better ships when they finally do get on the Donager.
Yeah.
But besides that, he was a ding-dong. I mean, the whole way through, I'm pretty sure he was a ding-dong. And we're getting information from Alex about the Martian Navy in this chapter. And none of it's good news for them. Everybody thinks they're going to get taken on board and disappeared, tortured, etc. So they make that.
Well, and why wouldn't they think that? They accuse the Martians of starting this whole mess.
Holden would be what I would be with you.
Yeah, well, he may disagree, but the rest of the crew knows better. They're not.
He's all like, "What did I say? What did I say? I didn't accuse anybody.
I just said what the truth is. Like, what? Come on, are you kidding me? How is he so dumb? How is he so dumb?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
I don't know, but
I,
he does not, like you read about people and you're like, man, that's a cool guy. But you don't read that and think that thought about this guy.
I don't know.
Hell no, of course not.
Stupidity outshines the. I don't even know if they're trying to write him as cool. I guess are they writing? Are we supposed to think he's?
I don't think so.
There are some things that Naomi says about him later in this book that I just rolled my eyes at.
Where she was thinking positive thoughts about him,
Yes,
and she has no real reason.
Like praise thoughts, and
Yeah, she has no. Yeah,
I was like, you're smarter than that. Ugh.
Obviously, she isn't.
Obviously, she isn't. But I was thinking about show Naomi.
Okay, well, I'm not thinking about show Naomi.
In that one moment. Anyway, cut that out.
Cut out what?
Cut it. Okay, so the captain sends a video. The captain of the Doninger.
Captain Yao?
Captain Teresa Yao.
Yeah. What about her?
Wait a second. What happened before that? They sent out some other video.
Yeah, they sent out a please don't kill us video, non-directional broadcast, so that anybody that was receiving would receive the message that they're going to meet up with the Doninger. They'll see you soon. So
okay, that's right.
Everybody in the world would know that
what's going on.
Yes.
So once again, he sends out this blast of information.
And this one, I think this one was smart.
I don't disagree. I totally agree. That one makes sense. He's trying to save them.
Yeah.
Make sure they don't die.
Right.
And Teresa Yao, Captain Teresa Yao comes back basically saying, please don't do that again.
I don't know why she would even care though.
It's kind of what you talked about last time. I'm not sure if we said it on air or not, but it's all about the control of information, right?
They sent out a broadcast, right? It went everywhere. It was omnidirectional.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have to do that. They could have sent a tight beam to cover their ass as well, right? And if they do a tight beam, she won't ever know that they're communicating with anybody. She'll never know.
Are you saying this is just another case of Holden being stupid?
No, I'm just saying that she can admonish them if she wants to. It doesn't matter. They can still communicate without her knowing it.
Of course. I think either way, they're both going to do what they're going to do, which is what they did.
Well, they're going to get picked up.
I think this is both of our nihilist tendencies coming out. Like, well, it doesn't matter, so it doesn't matter. Nothing matters. Honestly.
Yeah, so I referred to that as the spirit of the law broadcast. Which, whatever, it's probably the smartest thing we've seen Holden do.
Yeah.
Actually, he does something smart in the next chapter too, but
we'll get there.
Two chapters from now.
We'll get there.
But as they're making they're saying their final farewells, as far as like, we'll see you in 13 days or, whatever. And that's when they notice they're being followed by 6 other ships.
Oh yeah, that's right.
The belt objects come out.
Belt objects ? They don't know what it is.
No, they don't. But anyway, they go to rendezvous with the Doninger, which is that huge ship. And that's it. That's the chapter.
They're heading towards the Martians.
All right, so let's move on to chapter 8, yeah?
Yeah.
Chapter 8 is a Miller chapter.
Miller time.
Exactly. All right, so we're back on Ceres Station.
Yeah.
And it's been 7 days since the communication, I think. So
since Holden's communication to the world.
Yeah, so there were 3 days of rioting, and then it's been kind of returning to normal since then. And it's 7 days. I assume a week is still 7 days. I don't know.
Yeah, let's just make that assumption. There's also the thought of remember the cant and all that stuff. The Canterbury is definitely being used to fuel the flames of
propaganda. It's all propaganda. Nobody's taking real credit for it. Everybody says it's the OPA, and they're speaking for the OPA, but
but it's just a bunch of little, probably little gangs, we could call them.
It's people with YouTube channels.
Exactly.
Trying to make a big deal out of something for their own purposes, right?
Yep.
That's probably it in a nutshell. So this chapter, we see the return to normalcy, and we find out that Havelock is talking about getting a transfer. He's applied for a transfer out of there, and we're seeing evidence that things are getting worse for people. Perspective-wise, things are getting worse for people who grew up in a gravity well. Things are getting harder on Havelock, and
the Earther.
It's obvious. That racism is coming
out. When you say things are back to normal, I don't know that I agree with that.
No, I'm not saying it. That is the direction. That's what Miller is perceiving. He says that things are returning to normal under appearances. Like by appearances, things are returning to normal. But that's Miller, and it's also Miller acknowledging that nothing is normal.
Right. He doesn't really believe that.
No, but like crime is starting up again. People are going back to their jobs. The government offices, like the embassies, as it were, they've reopened with tighter security, but they're open. Investigations are proceeding along normal lines, etc.
They have cases and whatnot.
Yeah. So on some level, normalcy's returning.
Mm-hmm.
There's also some kind of nagging thought in the back of his mind that a war is beginning and he can't do anything about it.
Right.
And that's probably true.
And he's looking for Julie still.
Yeah. He goes to her. I don't like the reference of hole. I think that's a horrible way.
So let's just rewind just for a second. So Havelock and Miller, they're just basically talking about work in the day and what's been going on, which is the stuff we just discussed. Yeah. And Havelock asks him about this case, this bull kidnap job. And that's what it says in the book. That's why I said that.
No, that's why I'm grinning.
And how does it leads to Miller going to Julie's hole.
Yeah, and it's just such an unfortunate way of referring to it, but that's how they refer to it, and I can't help but just kind of giggle a little bit,
Yeah, well, they referred to his hole in previous chapters.
No, I know that too, but anyway, so Miller goes to investigate Julie's hole.
Yeah, looks around her hole. Her apartment.
So what did he figure out while he was there?
Let's see. God, what did you figure out? This is the chapter that
jujitsu.
He looked jujitsu, and he looks into her. What are they called? Is it a communicator? It's not a computer. They don't call it a computer.
Yeah, it's like her data pad or something like that.
Yeah, data pad. I think that is what it is. So he looks through her data pad, looks through different files, kind of. She's an organized person. She has all of her communications or things she's read in different folders. Some things have been read. Some things haven't been read.
There was one message that hadn't been read that was well, actually, there's two different folders that they used to give us an idea about Julie, and there's unread messages in two of them.
She's not, I forget what the folder's called, but she's not into the propaganda. She doesn't read the propaganda material.
Yeah. Right. She kind of cherry picks the important stuff out of those. So a lot of those aren't read.
Yeah. So I guess we can kind of infer she's smart in that way. She's not easily. Yeah, she thinks for herself. She's not easily lured by the propaganda. So perhaps the reason whatever she's doing or was doing with the OPA is definitely thought out.
Miller refers to her as somebody who's willing to sacrifice for a cause, but not one who is willing to enjoy their propaganda.
Right.
I think
she's doing it for her own real reasons, not for their reasons or their fake reasons to try to get people on their side.
Right.
Does that make sense?
I mean, I get what you're saying. I don't know I don't know if that's how I think of her in this regard.
Yeah, no, I'm just thinking through what it says in the chapter.
Well, there's one other message that she hadn't read, but it came from a folder that I think she titled Bullshit Guilt Trips. I think that was her title for the folder. The messages that she had read were from her mother telling her that they're going to sell her Razorback if she doesn't respond. The Razorback being the ship, the pinnace ship. Right. That she had won that race in, and
it starts off kind of like a typical "haven't seen you in a while" mom letter, though. Yeah, kind of that. It's like a light. It starts off with a light guilt trip, like, "Oh, I wish I didn't have to write you to talk to you."
Yeah,
and then it turns into, "Well, your dad's gonna sell your stuff."
Because we need the space.
Right back.
One of the wealthiest families in the world, probably, and they can't afford the storage fees anymore for ship.
Right. Obviously,
she identified it correctly as a form of extortion.
Right.
Do what we want or else. She wrote 3 responses and never sent any of them. The first one she wrote was the most emotional. The second one was less emotional, but still a little bit. And the third one was just kind of like, go ahead.
Yeah, the second one was emotional and also kind of logical. Well, not logical, but kind of her own guilt trip towards like, oh, it was my first boat and it's, memories and all that sort of thing.
Well, I mean, you've had those experiences where you get really, really upset and worked up. And as time goes on, you cool off and logic returns and the emotion, the chemicals in your blood wear off, right?
Right.
You get to see a really nice transition from someone who is like gonna blow up to someone who is swallowing their pride completely and go ahead, do what you gotta do.
Opposite of Holden, we could maybe put there. I mean, he just would put his first response out.
You're right.
Where she didn't put her first response out, thinks on it.
She didn't even send the third one.
She didn't even send it.
She must have forgotten or just ran out of time.
Didn't have time. Maybe just thought, what is even the point? They're gonna sell it anyway. If they're gonna sell it, there's nothing I can do about it.
You're right. That's a good. I mean, that's a very reasonable assumption that she just decided that there was no point.
Yeah, because if she went through those 3 and then finally just didn't even send anything, it was like, eh.
Yeah, the next logical step would be to not reply at all.
Yeah.
There's one final message from her father that she never read, and that was the one that lets Miller know that at least these rich people had some idea that things were about to go real bad in the belt.
Right. The line is from Jules Pierre Mao. I have solid information that the belt is about to be a very unsafe place.
Right. So 2 weeks before anything even happened, this guy was trying to get his daughter out of there.
Right. This rich guy, super uber rich guy, I guess.
There's nothing to comment on though. Here.
No, not really.
Again.
But the chapter ends with the line, "This sideshow was getting interesting."
Which, okay, yes, maybe that sounds like television to you, but that sounds more like a noir trope to me.
That's fine. Still tropey.
No, it's definitely a trope. But also, it's an adventure story.
Yeah.
This whole book is an adventure. It's action-oriented, plot-driven. We're lucky to get characterization, I think, is how I feel. We're lucky. Anything that we get that's any good at all, we're lucky to get it.
You're probably right. I think that's maybe where, I don't even say this very often, but like the TV show does get it better in some spots when it comes to that.
How do you feel about this chapter and what's going on in it? Like, I felt that that it treated the continuation of or the increase in gravity racism.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is to be expected at this point. Like, I think it was handled very well. The Havelock looking for a transfer, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Oh yeah, totally.
There's nothing that tripped me up in this chapter. It was paced well, and it just went and did its damn job.
Yeah, it was to let us know a little bit more about Julie, since we really didn't know much except generic stuff.
Through her underwear drawer?
Wait, say that again?
Did you notice that Miller went through her underwear drawer?
Well, he's a cop. He's going to go through everything, right?
Yeah, but he mentions her underwear drawer.
He's a lonely old man.
Yeah, his wife.
I'm not surprised, I guess.
He's definitely noticed the time. Yeah, no, he went through her underwear drawer. He went
through all of her clothes, which he did note that he owned more clothes than she did.
Right.
So yes, he went through her underwear drawer. There wasn't much there to be seen or to enjoy.
Perv.
You brought it up. But he was going through all of her clothes, and she had like one, I guess, let's say, nice-ish outfit, and then like a worker outfit, and then like that was it. And like
sounds really like the proletariat in Russia, sparse.
Yeah, very sparse. She did not have a lot of personal possessions. So that's another character trait for her. That wasn't important. Though the pinnace does sound like it's important to her, but she's not going to be a baby about it to fight to keep it.
It's not important enough that she brought it.
That's true, but if you have no money and you're in the you're some rich girl coming to this place, it seems like a bad idea to bring a racing pinnace. I don't know. I don't know why she didn't bring it. Maybe that's a good question.
Her reasoning for being out there is that she's running away from her old life, right?
Right.
She's running away from the money and the privilege. She's going to the place where the people are treated the worst, where they are the most maligned.
Right.
And she's joining the lowest, of the low out there. So it makes sense that she wouldn't bring money.
Right. But she does obviously, there's a little seed back there that she obviously still cares about her pinnace.
Of course, it's her childhood.
Yeah. It's her racing pinnace, for goodness sakes.
For goodness sakes. Yeah. Well, I think we're seeing that she has started to throw everything away already, and she's getting to the point where she's truly not attached.
Yeah, I agree with that. Plus, she didn't send that note. And yeah, so the 2 points of this chapter, or 3 points of this chapter, let's say, are the showing us kind of what's happened in the belt since the Cant blew up, learning more about Julie, and then that last little bit of information that Miller finds interesting, which is
her underwear drawer.
Her underwear drawer. Okay, then one more thing, which is the belt's going to be an unsafe place soon, and that's sent 2 weeks before the Cant blew up. See if he thinks that could be interesting.
I think that's pretty interesting too.
Yeah.
Like if I was
rich
in his
people
shoes,
usually know what's going on, right?
I don't know. I mean, I doubt it.
The mega rich.
He obviously knows something. I mean, whatever my assumptions, I don't think matter because this isn't our world, right?
Well, of course.
But it's not a far stretch for me to imagine that, this rich dude knows something's up. But if you were Miller at this point, if you were Miller, and you were following up on this stupid thing that you didn't want to do, some rich kid, and you saw that her dad was trying to recall her because he might have known something, I would follow this up too. I'd be very interested at this point.
Yeah, well, something finally interesting has come of it. Now it doesn't seem like a regular kidnap job.
Well, it's also connected to what's actually happening out there.
Right.
It's become relevant to what's going on.
Yeah.
Connections. Dun, dun, dun. Right. All right. So chapter 9.
Chapter 9. Back to Mr. Holden, Mr. Jim Holden.
Yeah, we're syncopating and what is it called? Reticulating. We're doing both of those things. We're going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth from Ceres to this ship.
Yeah, and I don't think we're not going. I think that just keeps on that course.
Well, it will until somebody dies, I'm sure, but we'll see. So what? They're 10 days out at this point for meeting up with the Donager. So a couple of days have passed.
Right.
They're just chatting. Naomi tells Holden that Shed's not doing so hot and maybe she should talk to him, or he should talk to him. Right.
That's this chapter. Yes. So I guess we could say, we're getting some more character stuff in this chapter.
Shed needs to have a good cry, so they schedule a cry that night with booze.
Yeah, well, I find it was kind of funny, or you can kind of, I think it was done well, the picturing Shed like worrying about, he's really hyper-focused on the stocking of these shuttle ships and how poorly done it is, and it's only for STDs, like antibiotics, and he's just really hyper-focused on it, and that was kind of funny. In a sad way.
It was
manic.
He was responsible for that problem, right?
Yeah, but you know what? You're right.
He's the ship's doctor.
In charge of that?
He's the ship's doctor. So why the hell does he have the STD medicine on the shuttle? And
but maybe it's just a bureaucracy thing. It's company BS. Maybe he's in charge of that. He gets what he gets. Though he could have moved things around, put other things on that shuttle. Anyway, he's hyper focused on it. Holden has to snap him out of it.
Yes, if this was a movie from the 50s, he would have slapped him.
Yeah, and it would have been hilarious.
Wake up now. Yeah, so they schedule that event in order to,
get drunk and cry.
Yeah. That seems
about all their fallen comrades.
Yeah. And that's Fred Johnson calls though while they're putting around out in space heading towards that ship. And he's famous, so they get a phone call from some famous dude. He's like, "I think that you're being played, sir, and this is why." And so, who's Fred Johnson?
So Fred Johnson, he was in the Earth Navy.
UN
Navy.
Yeah.
Okay, it was Anderson Station, where a bunch of Belters led a riot or a protest.
They threw some dude. They spaced some guy. It goes through this really long explanation. It says that there was a tax increase at blah, 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 and it caused this number of people to become upset. And of that small number of people who became upset, a very much smaller number were very upset. And they got organized and they went over to the station.
Yeah, so Fred Johnson was in charge of the coalition that went in to Anderson Station to tamper down the revolt and killed everybody, spaced everybody.
Well, he definitely killed everybody.
It was a slaughter, and he was called the Butcher of Anderson Station after that.
And it was televised.
Yeah, because the Belters at Anderson Station, televised, pulled a Holden.
They did. They told everybody all about it.
I think they knew at that point they were probably sacrificial lambs for the cause. So he resigned. They tried to keep his resignation quiet. He went away and then came back. There was some metal workers thing.
Yeah.
And then he talked the metal workers down and became he became a hero.
A hero to the Belters.
To the Belters, that's right.
He negotiated the peaceful handover of a station back to its rightful owners after worker revolt had taken it over.
Right, and there was like 150,000 people.
It's a station of some kind. It was
going to be a bloodbath. He came out and talked them down, and became a hero for the belt. And now leads Tycho Station.
I don't know.
I don't know what his position. I don't think he I don't think he has an official.
He hasn't stated it.
Position.
He hasn't stated it to us. We just know that he's this guy. He's famous for doing this thing. And right now he's calling their ship from some place that's supposed to be empty space.
Right.
And it's not. There's a big old radar feed coming back from there. They're getting bounced back or whatever it's called.
Yes. He's saying there are forces working hard to start a war. I'm going to send you a word so that if you are under Mars control, say this word and we know you've been compromised. Compelled to say whatever they're forcing you to say if on the next broadcast you put out or whatever.
Right.
And if not, say this other word, something, whatever.
It's ubiquitous.
I'm saying we're there for you if need be, like if the S hits the fan.
If they can.
They'll
do what they can.
Oh, there's like a moment of, I think it's towards the end of the chapter where Holden's like unzipping. He's like getting uncomfortable and unzipping.
I know exactly what you're talking about. What you're talking about.
I have a dirty shirt. And he's like embarrassed for Naomi to see it. And I'm like, why?
Yeah, exactly. This is what happened. They're sitting around the table during the cry and they haven't bathed or whatever in 3 days. And they're drinking their whiskey and everybody's it's very warm in this cramped area because when there's a bunch of people drinking booze and that's what happens. It gets hot.
Right. Yeah.
So he unzips his coveralls a little bit
Yeah.
To cool off. And
Seems
he sees
obvious.
Naomi noticing her t-shirt, and he gets self-conscious about his dirty t-shirt, so he zips his.
But we don't even know that it's not even that she looks at it grossly or anything. It's just it's like immediately it's his perspective, like, oh, like I can't let Naomi see this.
I felt it was weird as well. It's true.
But it also just seemed not logical to me. No, but you know what? As we've been discussing, Holden isn't very logical.
Maybe he's a complete crazy person.
Maybe he is.
Maybe he is absolutely nuts.
Just kamikaze style.
I don't know. But so that's it though. There's just traveling, and then there's a
off to the Donager.
Yes, and they got a few more 10 more days to go. 11 more days to go.
Something.
And they're still being followed by those 6 ships.
Right.
And that's it.
Yeah.
That's the end of the chapter. Okay, so chapter 10, back on the station.
Yeah, back to Mr. Miller.
Right. I have something. I'm trying to read my own handwriting right now. It's challenging me.
You and I both take handwritten notes.
Oh, back burner. I get it. It took a minute, but I knew it was a B. Miller starts off in Shadid's office telling her about what he's found, and she's like, give it the back burner treatment. Seriously, it's not important. She doesn't believe.
She just wants a report that she can send off to say we're doing things. Yeah, get back to work, Miller. Not this work, your other work.
Yeah, there's some important stuff going on. Like, I want to say that somebody tried to strap a nuclear bomb onto some place and failed. And
wait, what? Is that what Shadid is explaining in here?
I mean, I think
there's all sorts of things going on. There's all sorts of terrorist is the wrong word. What's the like violent protest?
No,
going on.
That was it. Somebody strapped a nuclear device onto like a landing bay, and the explosion that happened was not the nuclear device. It was a failed attempt to set up a bomb. And that's the kind of stuff that's going on now. And so that's why Shadid is like, get to work. There's stuff to do.
Yeah, stop worrying about this Julie Mao, and not even the Julie Mao, but she's like, come on, that could mean anything. Some guy telling his daughter that it's unsafe. Like, of course he thinks it's unsafe.
Does any good detective do what his superior officer tells him or her to do? Never. Never. They have to be thwarted, right? So that we can be like, yeah, you do it, Miller.
Yeah, he knows. He's fine. He's digging for the truth. He's going to find out what's really going on.
What is that? Like, why do we like people who are, resistant to authority, who are recalcitrant and do what they want anyway? It's like, why do we like that in our characters?
I don't know. Is that an American thing?
It might be. I don't know, though. I mean, I'm American. I don't know that I can...
Well, so am I. But you know how it's always, we've got a lot of libertarians in this country, like people that like, don't tell me what to do.
Everybody likes an underdog.
Do what I want. There are a lot of Cartmans in this country.
That's just a character thing. It has nothing to do with America, right?
What about Holden, though?
Holden? We're talking about Miller this chapter.
Okay, fine. Let's back burner that then.
But we do, I mean, that's like a thing that we like, and that's why they're writing him this way. It's like there's a reason it's a trope in crime fiction or detective fiction that a detective is thwarted by his peers. He's thwarted by his commanding officer. He's often beaten up in noir, right? On the street.
Yeah, it's usually, the cover-up is usually the big guys, keeping the little guys down.
And he's a dogged pursuer of justice.
The normal folk down, which is usually the greater of the population. Than
in this case, it's the belt.
Right.
The belters.
But we're just in general, you're talking about the trope. And it's not just in mystery. I mean, there's like Stone Cold Steve Austin comes to mind. He's not even an underdog, but in the
doesn't come to my mind
character of wrestling, the WWF at the time against Vince McMahon,
Who was the villain?
You want him to kick his butt. And he doesn't, always do it, in the necessarily good guy way.
Right. Well, because Americans definitely like the bad guys.
Yeah, I think that's more and more too.
So I was having a conversation with my buddy's kid, who is 7 years old by like a couple of weeks. And he loves Kylo Ren. He loves Darth Vader.
So does my nephew.
So I asked him, why do you like the bad guys?
Yeah.
And he was confused. He didn't understand that Darth Vader is the bad guy.
It's one of my biggest issues with modern day storytelling in general. There are no good guys and bad guys.
I think part of it is his father is curating what he sees. So I don't think he understands that Darth Vader I don't think he's getting all the clues that Darth Vader is a bad guy. I don't think he hasn't seen him kill Obi-Wan Kenobi yet.
Yeah, see, that's a fault of
his father.
Right, his father, but it's also a fault. So he's only seen the new movies, I assume, if he likes Kylo Ren. We're going to go off on a Star Wars tangent here, but I hate those movies. I think they're poorly written, and that's one of the major flaws of it. Like, why should I feel any sympathy for Kylo Ren? Can we just make him a bad guy, please? And in the original trilogy, Darth Vader is a bad guy. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. There isn't any backstory that we need to know about. He's the bad guy.
Yeah, no, I get that.
I wish there was more of that these days.
It's definitely strange to me that he's confused about who the bad guy is.
Yeah. That's not good, though, in my opinion.
If a kid doesn't know that Kylo Ren is the bad guy, that means that the clues are not obvious. Like the things that are telling us who the bad guy is not an obvious thing.
The writing is so poor, and honestly, Gab, I think that they want it that way. The writers, the people in charge, they want it to be that way. For some reason, they want us to have sympathy for the bad guy characters.
I'm not sure how I feel about liking bad guys or like making them the anti-heroes. I'm not sure how I feel about that.
I know exactly how I feel about it. I don't like it. I want there to be bad guys. I want there to be somebody that we don't need to be sympathetic towards. There should be bad guys.
There shouldn't really be bad guys, though. It's not realistic at all.
But these are stories.
Yeah, no, I get that. But I mean, like, I personally would rather have more nuanced characters than what we get out of like J.R.R. Tolkien, where Sauron is bad, plain and simple, right? Bilbo is good, plain and simple. You know, his heart is pure. You know, like unicorns exist in that world, and like
those books aren't really meant to dive into the nuance. But I would say there maybe are some like Saruman. I mean, yeah, he's bad, but he started good. I don't know. We're gonna get into too much.
I get what you're saying, but like as is relevant to these books right here, it's the detective, right? We have a character who is basically following the trope.
Yeah, you want to know why we like the anti-hero? I don't know that Miller's an anti-hero.
I didn't say that he was. He's following a trope though, and I notice it. I see it like he's supposed to be the underdog. He's supposed to be thwarted, right? He's challenged in every respect. He's supposed to be the crime fiction hero.
I agree with you, but I also don't even really read it that way because I don't even think Shadid is being
She's the person in Blade Runner that's like, you're gonna do what we say, buddy. You're gonna do what we say, buddy.
Yeah, I mean, she's the boss. She's in charge. So I don't even think what she said was unreasonable or even overly authoritarian or anything. She's just kind of doing her job.
Yeah, no, I didn't think
so.
Authoritarian.
I don't know. I hear what you're saying, but your question was, why do we like that trope? I don't know. I guess my answer to that is I don't know.
Well, they're following it nevertheless.
You are correct. That is happening.
He's told happening.
Not to follow something, and he's going to follow it.
He does it anyway. He skips work to do it. It's weird, right?
Yeah. Is this where he asked Havelock to make some excuse for him? Like, just tell him I'm drunk.
That's in the next chapter.
That's the next one. Okay.
In this one, we just have him being told off the case by his superior officer.
Right. Is that the whole chapter? No.
No.
Oh, then he goes and talks to that other,
Asking questions about extortion. That's with him and Havelock. They go down and they talk to the guy that's running the hardware shop.
Is it hardware or was it a
They refer to it as a hardware store. I assume it's selling computer gear, mostly porn.
That's what I thought it was pornography.
Yeah, but he called it a hardware store, so I assume it's selling the hardware for it, like VR gear or whatever they use, in their time. And mind you, it's 300 years in the future, roughly. So, they go and talk to this guy at the hardware store who sells porn.
Right, and he's upset because he's being shook down again.
Yeah, again.
By some local thugs.
Sure.
And it's something that had been happening before, but it's a new group. And Miller's kind of like, well, why are you even calling me then if this is normal? Like, if this is a normal thing you have to do, what's the point?
Did you think it was funny that he said he was he was finally making a good profit, and now this is happening again? And it's like, how are you still in business if that was the only way you could make a profit?
Doesn't matter.
He's exaggerating, clearly.
I see what you're saying.
But he's getting shaken down again. And
so he's calling them because he was like, well, I thought you guys had all this taken care of, and now they're back.
Different people, but yeah, they're back.
But different people. So the different people thing is what interests Miller. The normal set of people have gone away. They're not around. It's some new group.
Right. So it's reinforcing that notion that the Golden Bough Society has disappeared.
Right. The usual thugs are gone, or at least just not showing themselves or not around.
And power hates a vacuum. What's it? Power abhors a vacuum.
Yeah. So someone just moved right in.
Criminals are filling that gap in.
Yeah.
This guy, they recognize this guy, and they have photographs from the security cameras outside of this guy.
Right. They have all the info.
He's got an OPA badge on his shoulder, and he's walking around all grinning, so proud of himself for shaking these guys down. So, they go.
Yeah, well, and Miller's like, well, who are they? Just tell me who they are. And the guy's like, well, I thought you're supposed to know this stuff.
Right.
He's only willing to give so much information, which honestly is quite a bit of information.
He gave him the guy's name.
Yeah, but Miller wants to know, who's in charge?
Well, he figures that out. He figures that out on his own pretty quick.
Yeah.
Right. So he decides to go and have he does a little investigation without Havelock because he's like, it's not safe for you, buddy. You go home.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty OPA heavy.
Yes. So he goes to a bar. He goes to a bar where the OPA are known to hang out.
Yeah.
Or have their whatever. He's a cop. He knows these things. Of course, he probably does. But he drinks a bunch of beer, and then eventually somebody comes and sits down next to him. Some dude with pockmarked face.
Right.
Like, hey, heard you been you trying to hook up? You trying to get in? He's like, no, I have questions. You answer them for me, please. I am policeman.
Right.
Here, look at these pictures. This is whatever his name is. Judd. Something Judd.
What's the upshot of this? This is the guy that asked him not to investigate Julie, right?
Yeah, in 2 chapters.
Oh, that's later. Well, what does he talk about him here with?
He's like, hey, does this guy work for you? Because he's shaking down this company. He's shaking down this business. Does this guy work for you? And he's like, no, he's not working for us.
Right. What's this guy's name? Is this Mateo or is this the other guy?
Which guy are you referring to?
The guy he's talking to, this guy at the bar.
His name is revealed in 2 chapters. He doesn't give it now. He just calls him Pockface Man.
Okay, well, who is Mateo Judd?
Mateo Judd is the guy that was doing the shaking down.
Okay, gotcha.
And wearing the OPA armband.
Gotcha.
So he's asking somebody in the OPA, hey, is this guy working for you or is he working independently?
Right. And the guy is not giving him any information and tells him to leave, right? He's like,
don't ever come back here.
Get out of here.
That's what he says. Don't ever come back.
And he walks away. Miller's doing a lot of thinking.
He's been doing a lot of drinking.
Candace is mentioned again. Just
Candace.
We know nothing about Candace. We know nothing about their relationship. We don't know why Candace drives him, even though she pops. Like, I don't like the Candace stuff because it means nothing to me. It's so meaningless. It adds nothing to his character for me. I mean, and there's nothing there for her. So what's the point?
It's like Gwyneth Paltrow in Seven.
Yeah. Just a woman there to drive the narrative, but I don't even know how it's driving his character because we never even saw them together. We don't even know what their relationship was. We don't even know why they're divorced.
No, we have a pretty good idea.
We can speculate, but no,
it's
again, that's kind of tropey too. It's like, you work too much and you're a depressing man. It's like, well, he was probably a depressing man before.
Yes. No, so, that's exactly why
whatever
is set up the way it is. It's completely a trope.
Yeah, I just don't like the Candace stuff. So
I don't know that you like the trope, right?
I guess. Well, but I don't like the trope, but I'm going to say specifically in this book, it's the Candace stuff.
Yeah.
It's this right here. That just jumps out. He goes back to his hole. He's thinking about that. He's thinking about Julie.
He's thinking a lot about Julie.
How does it end? He comes to the conclusion that the OPA is not moving in on the criminals. They're moving in on the cops.
The logical conclusion from this whole thing is, after asking questions about Mateo Judd, the OPA sent somebody off and killed him.
Right. Yeah.
And that's why Havelock said that they were moving in, or Miller said they were moving in on the cops. They were taking their place. No longer necessary.
But Mateo Judd's not a cop. Oh, gotcha. They're taking care of the criminal element.
They police themselves.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. That's the end of chapter 10.
We go back to the night for chapter 11. And they're closing in on the Donager, right?
Correct.
What'd you say? It was an ugly ship?
Yeah, it starts off with the Donager was an ugly ship.
Time? Yeah, this is the second time he's complained about aesthetics.
Yeah, why?
He's like,
why do you think we need to know about this information? It's a weird character trait to me that's pointed out, and I'm not sure why.
I don't really get behind it. Like, space would be pretty utilitarian.
Yeah, I guess maybe it's to remind us that comes from the Earth background.
To art school?
Yeah. His family is a little bit more hippy dippy. There's 5 mothers and 2 or 3 fathers or whatever it is.
3 mothers, 5 fathers.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
And he's a mix of all of their DNA.
So that was, to me, that was the most interesting thing in this whole section.
Is that in this part?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You get background information, but this is during during the part where he's being interrogated, where this part is revealed. So let's talk about that then.
Sure. Well, let's hold on. Let's just quickly get there. Is there anything before they get to the ship?
Just that it's ugly.
It's ugly. Oh, another thing, we've talked about this before, but how they're both moving at such fast speeds, but at the same speed, it's almost like they're just sitting still next to each other.
Sure.
It's just interesting and kind of mind-boggling to think about how in space, nothing is not moving. Everything is
relative. Yeah.
It's just everything is moving constantly.
Right.
I mean, we're on Earth and it's constantly moving. You just don't think about it.
Well, you can't really tell, right?
No, well, of course not.
Well, I mean, we can see the moon is moving.
It's why it's mind-boggling to think about.
It is mind-boggling to think about. But the stars are so far away.
God, it's so crazy.
It doesn't matter how fast you're moving. They're not going to move.
It's just crazy to think about.
Big distances.
Yeah.
To spend days in a car, think about that. When I was a kid, we drove to Alaska.
Oh, wow.
During summer vacation.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think we drove like an excessive amount per day, but it's probably a good number. But it took 7 days in the car.
Yeah.
7 days in a row driving most of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going on a trip that took 2 weeks in this crowded or cramped little space shuttle. They're filthy. They're filthy. Yeah, and he's like, Holden's like noticing that. Why is her hair always perfect?
God.
Why is this ship so ugly?
Yeah, he's really into looks.
Yeah, he is. He is into looks.
Which is another trait of his that makes me not like him.
You remember about the shirt in the previous one?
Yeah, it's like, man, we're not even thinking about that.
Maybe there's a reason we don't like him.
Say again?
Maybe there's a reason we don't like him.
Well, what do you mean? We've been pointing out all the reasons, or I've been pointing out all the reasons.
He's not described or written in a way that is sympathetic at all.
No.
Like, I don't like
not to me, no.
I don't like the guy. Can't really help it.
No.
All right, so they get taken aboard the Donager.
Yes, the Martian ship.
Yeah.
Flagship.
Better built than the UNN ship. Yes. And they get taken aboard with their magnetic boots, and they get put into some special quarters that's like nicer than anything they've seen in a long time.
Right. They're not cells or anything. They're being treated fairly well.
Yeah, at gunpoint, but yeah.
Right, fairly well.
Right. But Holden's singled out and taken for questioning by Lieutenant Lopez, who turns out to be military intelligence. And he pops these tabs when they're talking, like focus drugs or whatever, and Holden. I keep getting them mixed up because we keep jumping back and forth, and their names aren't memorable.
The names aren't memorable.
They're not memorable. But we're talking about Miller here. No, we're talking about Holden. I just did it again after being conscious of the fact that I'd done it.
Yep.
Holden is like, oh, he's taking focus drugs. I can't lie to this guy. Or it's going to be difficult to lie to him or whatever he said. I don't know.
Like Holden was going to lie anyway.
Holden is a truth teller. We've talked about this.
Yeah, he wasn't going to lie. So what? Why even?
Right, so Lieutenant Lopez even tells him, you're a very honest man. And he's like, thank you very much. But this is where we get the reveal on what his family background was like. 3 mothers, 5 fathers. Because the population of Earth is more than 30 billion.
Right.
This is the way people have started to, like, the government encourages people to live like this.
I think this is also kind of a loophole way for certain people to keep their, I'm not going to say vast amounts of land. Maybe at this time it would be considered vast amount of land.
That's how they got it.
Because there's so many that, like, they're allowed to keep the land they have and it not get like broken up and made into whatever.
It allowed these eight parents to 1 child. That ratio allowed them to have 22 acres or something.
Yeah, which is kind of amazing if you think about it.
It is, but if you think about 30 billion people on Earth,
yeah,
the government would have incentives for people to
only have the 1 kid. I see what you're saying.
No. It's way less than 1. It's 8 people to have 1.
I totally get what you're saying. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Like there
would be a reward for literally having only 1 child amongst the 8 of you. Yes.
It makes perfect sense. If you're trying to keep your population in control, those kinds of incentives would exist. And notice it's farmland, 20 acres of farmland or whatnot. So they're also encouraging people to grow food.
Right.
Makes a lot of sense in my book.
They have to feed people in space.
Well, they have to feed 30 billion people.
On top of 30 billion people.
I don't think they also feed everybody in space.
I think they are. I think a good chunk of food goes to the belt.
Why?
I believe it gets brought because that's just I don't think the belt.
You don't think they're self-sufficient?
I don't think the belt and Mars are quite at the capacity to. No, I don't think they are selfsufficient yet.
Are you basing this on the book or the TV show?
I think that gets brought up later in the book. So maybe curb that for now. Maybe I think that gets brought up later in the book.
Okay. Well, regardless, like I wouldn't have thought that they'd be feeding the belt. It doesn't seem reasonable to me that a colony like Mars with the population that they have wouldn't be self-sufficient. That seems ridiculous.
I'm not sure that all of Mars is terraformed. You know, I think they're
not growing their own chocolate, but they better be growing their own food.
Well, we've already seen that the food is not really food in the belt and in the ships. Like it's
just grown. Well, I mean, what are they going to do? They can't raise cattle. They can't, I mean, they're not going to have fields of wheat and stuff. They're growing everything that they need, but they'll still import luxuries.
Okay.
I mean, I think that's how it goes. And that makes sense to me. Like they would need to be capable of producing their own food. You wouldn't have enough ships to have food keep coming over and over and over, right?
Who knows how all these people stay fed and alive, eating their own recycled feces, probably.
Still suits would be awesome.
Soylent Green.
Soylent Green's people.
Exactly.
All right. So Lopez is questioning Holden.
I was in my head. I was thinking Miller. God.
Yeah, we're on the Holden.
Got me now. Yeah. Questioning Miller. We find out about, is this when you said earlier we found out about why he was discharged as well?
Yeah, he asks him all sorts of weird questions about his past, and we get, I mean, this is the reveal of his character.
Right.
The reveal of a lifetime. Like, you don't get this kind of opportunity normally as a writer, to interrogate somebody and then have them happen to be somebody who always tells the truth.
Yeah, more conveniences.
Fair enough. So yeah, he got discharged for trying to punch a superior officer in the Navy. Ding dong. Hurt the only person that he should have been hurting, which was himself. Got kicked out. Whatever. And now he's the top of the pop, but he's on the bottom rung.
Right, as we were discussing earlier.
He's a ding dong. No big deal.
Holden.
No big deal. He's supposed to be likable. I don't like him. I'm sorry. Right, but the interrogation gets interrupted by a klaxon warning them that there's combat happening, like to stations everybody kind of thing. So Holden gets taken back to the holding area where there's 6 crash couches and everybody's in a crash couch except him.
He gets put in the crash couch and then he releases himself from the crash couch, if I remember correctly.
It takes place.
For some reason, he releases himself and Naomi's like, what are you doing?
Yeah, no, you're right.
Yeah, not that it really matters, but he ends up out of the crash couch.
I don't know why he would do it either.
I don't know. I don't remember why he did it either. I don't know if there's...
to see. No, I remember. It's because he's like, we need to know what's going on.
Oh yeah, he's gonna like go out and explore the ship, I guess, is what he's thinking.
He's like, there's gonna be a guy stationed outside of our door who's gonna tell me what's going on, because of course there will be.
And of course that guy's gonna know what's going on because he's been standing here the whole time.
He's such a ding dong. He is such a ding dong. That was his motivation for getting up.
Yeah, you're right. That was it.
What a dumbass. I mean, just a dumbass. I don't know.
Yeah, so he does that.
The reason that there's the klaxon and the reason that there's stuff going on is because those 6 ships that had been following them from the belt, they've been fired upon, and now they're returning fire. And they're like, the entire time, nobody... Okay, so this is...
Wait, stop. The 6 ships were fired upon?
Yes.
First.
Yes.
And so they thought it was the Donager.
The Donager fired.
Why did they fire on the 6 ships? Just because they were there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now a firefight has started.
And we're hearing the firefight. Like, it's being described to us, but like, this is what I was talking about earlier when I said that it was kind of convenient that Alex had been in the Navy.
I was just going to say, Alex starts explaining everything.
He does. He like tells them exactly. That sound means that the blah, blah, blah is going on right now.
Yeah.
And it's ridiculous. Like, just describe it and let us figure it out.
Exactly. Show, not tell.
Yeah, please.
There's a lot of telling in this book that I don't prefer. I
think it's cool that there's a naval fight going on, right?
Yeah,
I would rather see the fight going on, than hear about it from the people who were in a holding cell. Because the only thing interesting that happens in this holding cell, Shed gets his head blown off.
Yeah, all of a sudden, Shed's head is gone.
Right. That's the only thing interesting that happens in here. And they have to, because you mentioned it earlier, we're locked in with the perspective that we have, right?
Yeah. Yep.
We're locked in with Holden's perspective. We can't change it. They made that decision as authors.
Right.
They're telling us what's going on in here. And this is not where anything interesting is happening.
Correct.
So we're stuck in this room watching the boring while there's a naval battle going on outside.
Yeah.
And it's obviously getting hairy. Like, Shed dies because those 6 ships, which nobody thought for 1 minute that belt ships were going to be able to confront the Donager.
Right.
Right.
If I remember correctly, too, there's a lot of they switched to the close combat missiles, right? Or the torpedoes.
Yes.
Because they're just in such close proximity.
Yeah, they're within,
which is also crazy. apparently, based on what
dozens to
Alex
hundreds
said.
of meters instead of thousands.
Right.
Like they're very close. And they obviously are making hits on the Doniger because Shed died.
Right. It's like a big shrapnel blast or something, or bit little like bullets came through, or
I don't remember the names of the weapons or any of that stuff, but we're talking about steel, balls of steel, or pieces of steel that were coated in nylon. It's something to help penetration. Like it's these slugs of metal that they're shooting at the other ships.
Is it the Gauss turrets?
Yeah, essentially. It's like a big, powerful magnet throws. It's a railgun, essentially. It's a magnet.
It looks like a streak in the sky, right? Or like a light streak or something, or like a string of lights or something like that.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
It doesn't matter. They get hit. It's shrapnel blasts, and Shed's head gets...
You're talking about stuff from the TV show.
They describe it in the book. It could be future chapters, but they describe the way it looks, like the...
Well, I didn't pick it up if it was here. Well, regardless, we're stuck inside this room with a dead Shed.
Yep.
That's all we know.
That's how the chapter ends. And then all the gravity, there's no gravity.
The engines got hit or something. The acceleration on the ship stops, so all gravity stops. They're drifting.
Yes.
That's how the chapter ends.
That's how the chapter ends. And if it doesn't sound that exciting, that's just because that's how it was kind of described in the book.
They really shouldn't lock us to the boring stuff.
It kind of is unfortunate.
I wanted to see that battle. And just having the sounds that the guns make described does not do it for me. It's not interesting. It's interesting, but it's not the interesting part,
Yeah.
Go ahead and describe the sounds, but then give me something.
Well, it's not like we're getting character reveals in lieu of that.
No, the thing that we got...
Alex giving us the info. That's it.
No, we also got the ding-dong part about him banging on the door, like, tell me what's going on. We got that, too.
Yeah, that's kind of us, though, inferring that we don't like it.
I guarantee you other people dislike it as well. The only reason we got that information is because they made the decision to lock our perspective to those characters.
Yeah.
If they would just tell us what was going on outside, they could have avoided having to give us that kind of bad information about Holden.
Also, though, we only have the two perspectives. There aren't any other characters that we're getting perspectives from.
Well, do you really feel that the dialogue is not giving us some perspective from other characters?
No, they totally are. But what I'm saying is, like you were saying, we're locked into those two perspectives. So the only perspective that we're getting with any of this space stuff is Holden's perspective and how he's viewing it. Whereas, I'm going to jump to the show for a second. We get a couple other character perspectives that I believe you get in the next book, but that gets thrown in. So you get some other perspectives and ideas of what's going on. I don't know, but it's just those two guys, and that's it. I don't know what to say.
I would rather have more character perspectives, but I don't think I want like a Naomi chapter.
No, I don't. I think that would be superfluous. It would just... I feel like that's...
what other, like, how would you rather them have done this than just locking us to these two perspectives?
I guess just tell the story. How are other stories told?
That's what I was asking you about Agatha Christie earlier. That's the way books are written. They're almost always locked to one or two. It used to be always one perspective. Just one, right?
But aren't there books where there's just the omniscient narrator that's telling us what's going on?
Yes, but that's still one perspective.
Right?
True. But it'll be locked.
Of course, there's always going to be a perspective, okay? And obviously there's somebody driving this ship, the author, obviously.
Right. But they're not doing like third person omniscient. They're doing first person stories, essentially. That's how locked in we are.
Okay. Hey, Game of Thrones. I'm going to go there for a second. Sure. Not everybody loves that they're all point of view chapters, but you get more characters, more point of views.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think it works better.
Is it because there's more characters?
I think there's also more intrigue in that book.
He's a superior writer. I'm not even talking about compared to these guys. He is a superior writer. He's very good.
Yeah, whether or not it all ends well, we may never know. thanks to him.
Not but not the point.
But that's not the point. But what we have with the 5 books, there's just more intrigue, and there is a lot of rereadability, in my opinion. And that's also one of those where I'd be like, oh, you like the show? The book is so much better than the show. There's so much more in the book than in the show. Whereas in this case, I might say, you can watch the show, that's fine. You're not a book reader, the show's great.
Yes.
There's nothing in the book that the show does not take care of.
I wonder who wrote the show. Is the dialogue the same?
It's all it's not. That's why I feel like this was written very much to be turned into a show.
It might have been. Anyway. But let's finish the section, then we can talk about the stuff. Let's go to chapter 12, yeah? Back on Ceres
Station with Detective...
Both of them.
Miller. What's his first name? Joe? It's like Josias or something.
Is it?
Something like that.
I don't remember. It's not important, is it?
No, not at all.
Miller.
Is anything important?
Miller. Some stuff is important. Some things are just not.
No, that is not important.
Miller and Havelock are having breakfast before going into work. Miller asked Havelock to meet him before work or whatever. Like, hey, let's get together. I need you to cover for me. I'm not going to work for the next couple days. Tell them I'm drunk.
Candace came by.
Ex-wife trouble. They'll believe that nonsense because I'm going to go investigate Julie Mao.
Yeah, he's got the Julie bug up his butt.
He does. He's curious and he wants to know more. And now that he's seen her underwear, he really wants to know more.
God.
Havelock agrees to this.
Yeah, he's a good partner, and
he's a great partner. Best I can tell.
Havelock's a good partner.
Of course, he's a good partner. He's an Earther, right?
Yeah, of course. Earthers are the best.
Yeah. Get out of here, Belter. Old Miller, he goes to talk to the jiu-jitsu instructor down where Julie used to train or trains currently or whatever.
Get some more information there. Instructor isn't too forthcoming at first. He wants a warrant. He doesn't want to talk about his students.
Yeah, patient client confidentiality, whatever.
Miller's pretty straightforward with him. He said, hey, I've got a job. Tells him what it's all about and says she's not in any trouble. I just want to know what's up. And he goes, oh, kidnap job? Like, this must be some normal thing. Kidnap jobs.
Yeah. I think it is normal.
That stood out to me. That stood out to me.
No, that's true.
Okay, I'm going to tell you my other thing that stood out to me.
Yeah.
They're talking about Julie, and the guy already knows all the questions that is going to be asked, gives the answer, and he goes, no, didn't have a boyfriend, since that's the next question you're going to ask. Yeah. And Miller thinks, or he says, I think out loud, like, that's weird. Like, you think she'd have a boyfriend? And the guy's kind of like, well, why? And he's like, well, pretty girl like that. Why wouldn't she, It's like, what? Okay. Yeah, pretty girl. He assumes that because she's a pretty woman that she'd be into, first of all, that she'd be into guys. Perhaps she hadn't met the right person. Something in the way he said it hinted at amusement, which made me think, oh, she's a lesbian. Which it doesn't matter to the story whatsoever, but that's what it made me. It stood out as Miller having kind of a narrow perspective when it came to looking at a pretty girl.
Yeah. Okay.
Assuming that, and also not even assuming that she'd be into guys. Maybe she's not into guys. Maybe she's not into girls, but just assuming that she's into love and romance, period. Like she had time for it. Like,
sure.
It was a strange assumption, I thought, for him to make.
Yeah.
So that stood out to me.
Okay.
But that is at the end of the interview. But I don't think much. Did he give him any sort of information that we didn't know already? I'm trying to. I
don't think so. And that kind of bothers me also.
Oh, that she was attacked. He said, was she raped? He was like, she never said. Oh, and then again, we get a little bit more Miller perspective where she's one of the quote unquote good ones.
Right.
Ones who take the pain and suck it up and shove it on the inside and move on with your life.
Well, it wasn't
take it as a lesson.
It was learn the lesson and move on.
Learn the lesson, move on, be strong. She's not going to run and be like, help me with this. You know, nothing's going to come of it. So she's going to learn how to defend herself and move on with her life.
Do you remember the prologue? We discussed how her character was described in the prologue, and we're supposed to take her as she's a strong woman, et cetera, right?
Right.
This is reinforcement of the same ideas.
Yeah.
You're coming from, I mean, it's smart to reinforce those ideas, but at the same time, I already got it. You know, I already knew this stuff. There's nothing special or new. And like the fact that she was attacked, that's designed to elicit sympathy from us. Right?
Yeah.
But it gives us a reason for why she's doing the stuff that she's doing. So that's good. I like that.
Thinking ahead, if we don't get any of this Julie stuff, it makes the stuff that happens later even more insignificant.
Yeah.
So we have to get that. We have to know about Julie.
Well, we have to care.
We have to care.
And
I guess they're doing their best.
Yeah.
With, again, the two perspectives we're given. Two perspectives. We got her perspective in the prologue.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, nothing. She's in a traumatic.
That was told in third person, though. That wasn't even directly from her perspective. It was like an omniscient person watching her only.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So we don't even get her perspective on that.
Right. Have you ever read Neil Gaiman?
No, just Sandman. I've never read his novels.
He has this really nice way of kind of giving you a whimsical description of like what's going on and why it's important.
Mm-hmm.
And it comes from this very omniscient perspective usually, but it fills you in really nicely.
Mm-hmm.
Like it does the job perfectly of giving you all the information you need to understand what is relevant and why we're supposed to like a character. Even sometimes it gets delivered in that way.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just really nicely done. We know it can be done. We know that a character can be simply given to us like on a platter and we'll like them. It's about what we're given. Julie's not given that way, I guess.
She's just kind of thinly drawn.
Yeah.
We're only getting her from Miller's perspective, or in learning about her through some other people's perspectives. But that's it. We don't really know what she thought, why she came here. Will we ever know? Probably not.
Like, I don't know what more we get of her. But if my life was the life that we were supposed to follow, right, nobody would care, right?
Sure.
But Julie's won a race in her little private racing ship, right?
Goodness.
And she's thrown away wealth and privilege in order to go live a real life. And
it's too much of an overview of a character without really knowing who she is. Like,
she hasn't done anything. We haven't seen her do anything except get out of that locker.
Right.
That's the only thing we've seen her do. And like you could put a wild animal in that locker and they would try to get out.
It seems like anybody would react that way in that situation. She didn't do anything special in that situation.
So what is special about her right now besides the fact that she's discarded privilege? We know that she's good at, she works hard. We know that she works hard.
If we're going purely from Miller's perspective and not his fantasy perspective, but just his perspective as a detective, the only thing interesting about her is that this Jules Pierre's Mal line from the letter and that connection. That's really the only interesting thing.
Right.
Yeah, that's it, I guess.
Right. But she's missing. She's a hard worker. She's a OPA operative. And her daddy said, hey, come home a little bit ahead of a bad event.
Right.
Interesting. Yeah, okay. Interesting enough, I suppose, but not from a character perspective, just from a plot perspective. Interesting.
Exactly.
I think interesting plot. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the jujitsu guy, right?
Right. Yep.
And then we get Miller goes back home and he's drinking a lot and he's thinking and he's pondering and And then he gets visited by that same pockmarked face guy.
Right.
He's given a name now.
Dawes.
Yeah, Dawes. And he describes him as a cop.
Right.
Again. He describes him as a cop again. He's part of the he's probably the equivalent. I think that's how he's thinking of this guy, is that he's a detective that works for the OPA, whereas
was Dawes, you think, a cop like Miller before?
It's
or
possible.
He's just acting as a cop for the OPA?
I think it's that.
The latter.
Yes.
Okay.
I think that
I was a little confused on that.
He describes his own job as being a liaison.
Okay.
Right? He says he's a liaison for the OPA.
He's talking for them, at least in this regard.
Which means he also relayed past information that got that guy Judd killed.
Right.
Or at least that's the thinking, right?
Right.
But he's all apologetic. The last time these two met, he was like, "Don't come back to my bar ever again." Right? And now he's here and he's like, "Hey, we got off on the wrong foot. I'm real sorry. I mistreated you. Let me treat you better." But he tells him not to go after Julie. They need to be the ones to find her. And he gives them a little bit of information. That Julie's ship was called the Scopoli, and that she worked for them.
And then what's the deal with Phoebe Station? Something happened with Phoebe Station?
That was discussed in the very beginning of the chapter, I think, when they were talking about Cover Me over breakfast, because somebody actually detonated a bomb there. Half of the people were dead, and the other half were missing.
Right.
So it's like everybody's gone. Like something bad, really bad happened there. And all they know is something bad happened there. They don't know what it was. Just half the people are dead and half of them are missing.
He's saying they're going to blame us for that too. Yeah, but he's saying we'll find her. You stop. We'll let you know after we find her.
Yet again, we have another person trying to stop him from doing his job.
Yeah.
Right? The person that hired him to do the job is getting in the way. The people he's investigating are not making it any easier. And then like some other unofficial organization is also telling him to, hey, knock it off.
Right. Yep.
So everybody's telling this guy to stop looking. And he's like, no, I'm going to keep looking.
Yeah. It's starting to get a little bit more interesting in his mind.
Well, yeah, that does make sense.
Especially when everyone's saying, no, stop. No, go away. Stop.
Yeah. It is very, very, very cliche though. He's like, no promises, man. No promises. Get out of my apartment. He tells him not to come back, essentially. He gets to reverse the roles, right?
Oh, and he asked him about the riot gear again, too. Like, okay, come on. Who took the riot gear?
Right.
And he's doesn't answer again.
Yeah, but Dawes promises to get information if he can. He says, I'll help you. And this was actually,
if I can, the classic phrase.
Right, but he needs to go and ask questions himself. He doesn't know the answers right now. But he promises to try. And then I think Miller's got a real bad taste in his mouth for some reason. Stuff starting to come together in his mind, and he calls Havelock up and is like, you need to take all the vacation time you've got, get off station. Do it now-ish, like now. So he warns Havelock off, and I assume he has good reasons for that. Don't really get an explanation, though, do we?
No. He tells Havelock that the OPA guy tried to scare him off of the Julie Mao case.
Yeah. What do you think he's thinking is going to happen?
And Miller was like, I think he's nervous, he's scared. And then Havelock's like, what scares the OPA?
Yeah, what do you think? What do you think would prompt Miller to tell his partner to get off the station, though? Like, what do you think would make him assume that his partner wouldn't be safe on the station, but he would be?
Well, we already know that all the riot gear is gone, and it still hasn't come out yet. Like, we haven't seen it on anybody or anything like that, so that's still in play.
Right.
OPA is ramping up things. The OPA is telling him to back off the Julie Mao case. The letter connection with Jules Pierre Mao telling Julie to leave because the belt's going to be very dangerous soon, and just the overall atmosphere of racist stuff.
Yeah,
it's going to get worse. It has already been getting worse for Havelock and other people of his ilk. I don't think there's any special magical reason why Miller told him, except just that, just that cop itch.
Yeah.
Like, things are going to get bad. Things are going to go down.
Well, that's the end of chapter 12, and that's where we're going to leave it.
Yeah, end of chapter 12. Havelock wonders what scares the OPA.
What scares the OPA? Huh. So we know that someone's trying to start a war now, right? That's the information that we were essentially given when Fred Johnson got a hold of Holden on the ship. That somebody's trying to start a war. And we've got Miller on Ceres Station thinking the same thing, that like they kind of give us this backwards in time notion that he's figured it out now, or he's figuring it out now. And like when he thinks about it in the future, he'll think back at this time as like, oh yeah, that's what that feeling was. That's how it's being kind of delivered to us in this weird back. I don't know. I mean, that's how so somebody's starting a war.
Right. Somebody or someone's.
And they're blaming Mars. And they're just trying to get a war started, so they're blaming everybody, basically. And a bunch of riot gear's gone missing. And Julie's gone.
Right. And the OPA is getting, I don't want to say more popular. They're ramping up their existence.
Somebody's blaming. Well, let's see, who are the players?
Propaganda's on the rise.
Who are the players right now? We've got the OPA is like a belter political organization, terrorist organization.
Here's the thing with the OPA, though. We don't know who's in charge of the OPA, if there's anyone in charge of the OPA.
Right. Fred Johnson is very high in the OPA.
Right, but we still don't know what his position is. I'm specifically talking about, let's say, Ceres Belter's OPA elements.
Okay.
They seem like rogue elements.
The OPA?
Yeah, the ones that are on Ceres Station, let's say, doing things. They seem like more like pawns in the game.
I think that's how they're being portrayed, yes.
Because even from Miller's perspective and everyone else's perspective, they think, like you were saying, all these different YouTubers like coming up and saying their thing. There isn't a joint perspective coming forth from these groups, except anti-Earth, anti-Mars,
Didn't we get some pretty reasonable information from Dawes at the end saying that none of those people were spokesmen for the OPA?
Correct. Which
essentially renouncing them.
Telling us
that's not us.
Right.
We're not doing this stuff. This is like the fake news stuff that we were hearing.
These are the people getting riled up.
Yeah, but are they legit? Do any of them even work for the OPA?
Who knows? Maybe some of them do, but who actually knows? I don't think we know that. But based off of Dawes, we can say no. Okay, so the players, yeah, OPA, there's Mars. Again, we don't know who's in charge of any of these factions.
That part doesn't matter, right?
No, it doesn't. I was just
that Mars is involved. They've got a warship involved.
Right. Mars. Earth doesn't seem to be involved yet.
We haven't seen anything about Earth yet.
I guess that's it. That's it so far.
So we've got some individuals on a ship, some individuals that are cops on Ceres Station, and then we got the OPA, which is a nebulous organization, and we've got the MCRA, or the Martian Republic Navy.
Blah blah. Yeah.
Whatever they're called.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
And somebody's trying to start a war between the Belters and the Martians.
I guess.
So hold on though.
The only reason the Martians are even involved is because Holden said so.
Well, no. I mean, it was very purposefully done, right? Somebody's implicating them.
Let's go to that. Let's talk about that then. If it was purposefully done as like a frame job to like start this war going and like blame the Martians for the Canterbury thing.
Yeah.
Were they just 100% sure that whoever was lured to the Scopuli was going to find that battery, find the Mars thing, and then make a broadcast saying that it was Mars? Like, how was that going to start the war?
I think you're correct that was the assumption, and I think that's a lot of trusting your plan to go right.
Definitely. That almost doesn't make sense that you would assume that whoever finds that battery
that Holden would just do it perfectly.
Who would make a broadcast transmission about it? That doesn't make sense to me.
And yet I feel like that's what we're supposed to be assuming.
Okay, but let's say we're not supposed to assume that. Let's say, like, what would the other plan be if
the other plan would be simply to rely on the Belters going fanatic. If you
just blaming whoever for it.
No. It was described early on that they go nuts if you mess with their infrastructure, right? That they're like irrational about it.
Right.
Like they're crazy. You mess with their water supply and they go crazy, even though it's a drop in the bucket and it's an Earth-owned company.
But if that battery wasn't found and a broadcast wasn't made and Martians weren't blamed, you're saying the Belters would still have gone crazy and just blamed either Earth or Mars anyway.
That's the alternative.
Okay.
And I think that's a stretch in itself because the company is not a Belter company.
Right.
And so if somebody blows up their ship, who cares? You can go get more ice.
And were they planning on it being the Canterbury, or like they had to?
I don't know.
They're not just going to put a ship out there to maybe be found. They're going to put it in the path, right, of a ship to find it.
Yes.
Or else, what's the point?
Yeah, they didn't select the Canterbury. I wouldn't assume they selected the Canterbury, but they would have set it to lure somebody in, right?
I think a lot of luck happened there.
I think it's a terrible
I'm not sure how good that plan was.
Yeah, it's a terrible plan. It relies on so much to go right.
Right.
You know,
you rely on the people of the Canterbury to have went to that distress signal.
Eventually, somebody would have stopped. Right. Even if the first group of people that found that signal were like, nope, didn't hear a thing, and they just keep on going, even though it's illegal, even though it's unethical. Somebody might have kept going, but somebody eventually would have stopped.
Okay, I'm starting to get confused here. The Scopuli is not the ship that Julie Mao was imprisoned on, correct? That was the ship that they took them from.
Yes.
Put them on the okay. That's all I need to know.
The Scopuli was the OPA ship.
Right.
No, I think you're right though. The plan is suspect. The plot is suspect?
I guess. I don't.
I think it has to be.
Maybe we'll find out later if the plan made more sense. But I don't know about
that. It doesn't. How are you enjoying it though?
It's fine. It's good.
There are little things.
It's good. We're criticizing all these things.
There are little things here and there that are bothering me. How I am representing the book and my opinion of the book, I think might be a little bit harsher than I really feel.
Because of the analyzing aspect.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably unfair of us to analyze this book. That's how I feel.
Unfair? We can analyze anything. Then what are we talking about then?
It feels a little one-sided to me. Like right now, it seems like the stuff that I'm noticing is more complainy than it is positive.
Mm-hmm.
Noticing more negative than I am positive stuff in the analysis, right? And yet at the same time, when I'm reading the book, nothing really bothers me too much, you know? Like there are little things, but it's a bunch of little things that kind of build up. And like, if I really put my mind to it, I can start pulling holes in the book, you know, and I can start digging into little things that are inconsequential on their own, but when they start to add together, the end result is I can't speak real highly of the book, even though I'm not displeased with it while reading.
Well, that's just your opinion. There's nothing like not valid about that or wrong about that.
Would you recommend this book to somebody that hadn't read it before? I have heard from someone that the books are worth reading.
Same here. My coworker wants me. He was on my ass to finish this first one, but he's more into like the third and fourth book.
Well, if it gets better, that's great. Series gets better in time. That's a good thing.
Based off of everything I know, though, Holden will be around for a while.
Not my favorite character. Still, I would say my favorite is honestly, I like Havelock.
I like Havelock too.
And I like Miller, all right.
Yeah, I will say nothing except that what happens to Havelock in the book is totally different than what happens to Havelock in the show.
Okay.
He goes on a different path.
That's fine.
But I really like Book Havelock.
I do too.
I agree. I like him.
I like him. I like Miller a little bit less. I like
I like him a little less too.
Let's see. Do I feel anything at all for Alex? Not really.
We didn't even talk about Amos in this podcast.
There's no reason to talk about Amos.
I'm just pointing that out, that he existed in these chapters. He's there.
Character.
But it's not.
He's not a character.
But he's not a character.
No.
Even Naomi, she existed in these chapters.
Not really.
But not really.
No, she acted only as a foil to deliver like 3 pieces of dialogue.
Right. And Alex was the exposition machine.
Yep.
So we didn't get a lot of great characterization of the crew.
We got locked into the unimportant stuff in the space sections.
Yeah.
We got stuck with the boring people. You know, the cool kids were having a fight.
Right.
You know, and we got stuck with the not so cool kids who were in detention.
Yeah.
At the time.
Yep.
And on the station, that's not true. On the station, we're hanging out with the cool kids, right?
Yeah.
They're definitely cooler. They're doing things.
It's more interesting.
They're doing things. Like Miller's actually doing stuff. He's going places. He's talking to new people.
Yeah, he's finding information.
We're stuck with some pretty passive folks in the other one. Like the only thing that they go and do is get Holden gets interrogated, right? Mm-hmm. And that's a passive act also.
Yeah.
He was questioned.
Even Shed dying is a passive act. Like he was just sitting there.
That was a pretty good description, though.
And he died.
When suddenly his head's just not there from the Adam's apple up. And there are these
it's like red dust.
Twin sprays that are like cycling towards the holes in the wall. Like getting sucked out into space. That's pretty cool. That was pretty cool. That would be disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. Can you even imagine?
No. That moment in the show I think is better visualized in the show than in the book.
It's so easy to do it visually though, Jill.
Oh no, I totally. But you know, that moment is like everyone's talking, it's like all of a sudden like Shed's dead.
Yeah, television
works well on the show.
Television has a huge advantage over literature every time.
I don't know about every time.
If it's visual, it definitely does.
Yes.
You have your sound, you have your vision, you've got color, you've got all these elements.
Yeah.
That you just don't get in the written word. Like you can use them, and some people use them real well, but you can't use sound effects to coincide perfectly with the visual effect, you know? Mm-hmm. Like that's a very it's a perfect medium for so much. For storytelling, it's a very good medium.
Well, and like in the book, it almost feels like you were saying, like they're stuck in this room. We don't know anything that's going on. Alex is just explaining a whole bunch of stuff, and then all of a sudden Shed dies.
Boom.
Where in the show, you have, like you were saying, you have the sounds. You can hear the battle going on. The lights are going. Everything's much more tense and exciting in that moment.
Exciting.
So for that particular moment, they do definitely have an advantage.
But they're not locked into the perspective of the prisoners. Can you imagine the TV show if the camera never left Holden?
No.
Imagine that, because that's how it's written. The camera's stuck on Holden.
Yeah, that would not be.
And maybe we can pick up the dialogue, and maybe we see Naomi every now and then over his shoulder, but the camera's stuck on Holden the whole time. Mistake. Big mistake. Yeah. Boring character.
Yeah.
He's passive. Everything's happening to him. He's not doing anything.
He does.
And when he does, he makes mistakes. That's what he
Yeah.
does. When he chooses to do something, it's the wrong thing.
There was one interesting Amos fact that I actually did write down that I didn't mention, that Naomi mentions. I forget what they were talking about, but I think Holden was being all woe is me. And she just mentions how Amos has actually been on 3 ships that have gone down.
Yeah, that's funny.
This
is his 3rd.
Yeah.
That is kind of funny.
I thought that was funny.
If you can believe that. Well, Jill, what do you think?
I think we covered it all. We talked about a lot of nonsense. We talked about a lot of relevant things. I think we covered it all.
Oh, yeah. I don't think we missed much.
No.
I mean, you know what? That's the thing, though. Like, I've said it before. I'll say it again. The stuff I really care about is the stuff I don't think is just easy to spot. You know, that's the stuff I like the most. The stuff where it's kind of like a puzzle, and I found something interesting, right? Mm-hmm. When I get to find something interesting, I like to have to work a little bit. Mm-hmm. And when I do get to work a little bit and I find something, like, it helps me maintain interest in a story.
Mm-hmm. That's why I do like the Game of Thrones books, because a lot of the information in Game of Thrones, because it's point of view and because you hear things through like word of mouth in the world, you never really know what's true or what's not true. So you'll get something from this chapter, but then like you'll get the other side of it from this chapter, totally different perspective that gives you other clues about what's really going on. It's interesting.
Right.
Having finished the book now, you just can't compare those 2 series at all. They're just different.
Mostly, I think it's unfair to compare books.
Yeah, no, totally. I agree. They're their own thing. Different, especially different authors. They're completely different.
It's kind of like how we develop our taste in something. It's how we become a connoisseur or an expert in a subject. We read widely, mm-hmm. or within the genre. You know, you read a bunch of science fiction. And as you read more and more science fiction or fantasy or whatever the genre you're in, you get a wider variety, and you start to discern your own preferences. That's how we develop our taste, as it were.
I'm not really an expert when it comes to books and reading. I'm pretty much all over the place. There are things I have stronger preferences in than books. Like if you were to ask me or talk to me about
for example,
talk to me about musicals, I could give you very detailed perspective of what I think is good, what I think is bad, what I think is like there for nostalgia. Like I have very specific feelings about musicals.
I like stories.
You like Harry Potter, right?
I love it.
I mean, I loved Harry Potter.
Not boring.
I've reread that series.
Not a boring series at all. Yeah, me boring. Too. I've reread the entire thing.
And it's very rereadable. And yeah. I just think about it, and like every character is so well drawn. Even some like Fred and George. I love Fred and George, and they're hardly really characters in the story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I cared about those characters.
Yes. I cried when Dobby died, and I didn't even like Dobby.
He was annoying.
I was reading it.
He was so annoying, but I cared as well. I was upset when he died.
Yeah, they're just moments that I got emotional reading that book.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely don't feel that way about this book. Again, not comparing, just I don't have the same emotion.
Definitely comparing.
I'm not attached to these characters the same way.
No, I'm not either. And I don't know if in it's 8 books now. It's soon to be 9 book series. I don't know. I mean, you could have a really great character arc for Holden, though. You really could. I mean, he could just be a bumbler for a couple of books, but I don't know that I would be able to maintain my interest in him for a couple of books of bumbling.
Yeah.
But he could have a really good character arc, if he starts to figure it out and he starts to make the right choice.
Based off the show, I don't think he grows much.
Just based off the show?
I'm just being honest. Based off the show, I'm going to think maybe he doesn't grow that much.
Which says to me that they think that his character is awesome. Right?
I guess.
If he can't be changed, if he can't be improved upon, he must be awesome, right?
Well, I think he's supposed to be like super righteous. Okay, that I was saying before, and I'll say it now.
Righteous is
always
obnoxious.
says something about him in a later chapter. You must be like the best man I know, or like something to that regard, like the most righteous person I've ever met. I'm just like, why? What? Ew, gross. It was so. Ugh. I'm like. Ugh.
Her character doesn't strike me as somebody who would value righteousness.
That's what I don't. And again, the show does her better too. She has way more of her own opinions about what's going on than just kind of being Holden's XO. I don't know. I don't love her in the book. I don't.
I mean, I like her in the book so far. I have no problems with her.
I don't really hate anybody.
Of the people on that ship, I'd say she's definitely my favorite.
Yeah, I disagree. I would say
who do you like better on that ship?
Probably Amos.
Amos is her R2-D2, man. That's it.
But we don't even get much of that relationship.
But that's
we got told about that relationship in one of those first early chapters. And moving on, we don't even get shown much of that relationship, which to me is unfortunate.
Yes, maybe. I don't view him as a character unique to himself.
I think the show does him better as well. They have much more of I would say a brother-sister relationship in the show. There's more of a relationship there than is portrayed in the books. Again, we're getting it from Holden's perspective.
We got very little in these chapters.
That's true.
We got very little. We got more information about the Martian Navy than anything in the space chapters. I mean, that's what we got.
Yeah.
We got a little bit of information, personal information about Holden, and we got quite a bit of information about the Martian Navy.
Yeah.
That's what we got.
Yeah.
I don't know. All right. So we do have quite a bit of the book to go. I'd say we're 1/5 of the way done or so.
Well, we have 55 plus an epilogue.
I'd say that winds it up for this one.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Should we do an outro?
I mean, what do you think is appropriate for an outro? I mean, goodbye.
Thanks, everyone, for joining us on our second podcast for Leviathan Wakes. Gab and Blab I was going to say we'll see you next time, but we won't see you next time. We won't even hear you next time. You will hear us on the next podcast.
You will listen.
Podcast number 3 for Leviathan Wakes.
Yeah. All right. So thanks for showing up. We'll talk to you guys next time.
Bye, everyone.